What is up, YouTube? I'm Devon DaVinci, leader of the Renaissance crew, and you're watching DaVinci Reacts. It's good to be back. I mean, I think I already had a video out by now. I think I had a short that came out recently. At least it should have. I'm hoping everything is coming out at the time that it's supposed to be coming out. There's a lot of new information and details that's come out. If you want to know more about some of the situations that I found myself in, be sure to check out my video that talks about the recent channel announcement. It's very big news, and for those of you that are followers of my channel for a while, it will definitely be something that I think you'll appreciate and like. I'm very happy about it. I'm like ecstatic about the situation. It's a big burden off my shoulders, and if you follow my channel for a while, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But with that being said, let's just jump straight into it. The Michael movie's come out recently. I filmed a review of the video, my own personal opinion of like what I felt about the movie. I'm a huge Michael Jackson fan. You guys already know that. I've had tons of videos and content related to Michael Jackson that's come out on this channel. And I mean, what better way to break out this recent Michael Jackson wave of interest than to look at more videos related to the guy. Now, I'm someone that's watched like every single music video, every single song, every single interview, things like that. So it's very tough to try to find content that I'm unaware of when it comes to the subject of Michael Jackson. But one channel that really does a great job of providing information that I was completely unaware of or haven't seen yet is a channel called The Detail. Now, The Detail is a channel that really goes into, well, detail about some of the behind the scenes stuff with different artists. Now, it's mainly focused on Michael Jackson. They did have some videos where they tried to look at other artists, but interestingly enough, the audience kind of rebelled against it, and it's like, we want Michael. So they didn't really have a chance to like jump onto like other, like doing the same type of content for other artists. Now, I would like to see them do that, but I do still love to see them talking about Michael Jackson and stuff. So I'm not gonna complain either way. But this video was something that really drew my interest because it's a subject that I'm not really too familiar with, even though it seems like it's a very significant subject, and that is what exactly happened between Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones that led to Quincy stepping away from producing songs with Michael after the Bad era ended. For those of you that are unaware, for the Dangerous album that came out in the early 90s, he kind of changed his sound and style and went with Teddy Riley, who was the pioneer of the New Jack Swing, one of my favorite eras in music history. But at the same time, losing that Quincy Jones touch, it's kind of noticeable. Not that it's bad or worse or anything like that, it's just that it's a different sound. Now, there was a bunch of songs on Dangerous that I really do like. I'm just curious as to like what the situation was right here. Was it just a case where Michael was just looking for a different sound and didn't want to continue to do the same thing over and over again? Or was there a falling out? Or what exactly was going on? And I know that like there was a period in time, the later years of Quincy's life, where he was kind of dogging Mike a little bit about like the plastic surgeries and stuff like that. So I'm curious to see what exactly might have been the situation between the two. Now, with that being said, let's jump into this and see what it has to offer.
I've been in this business 60 years, and success is an amazing animal. It's a very complex animal. It's a lot to eat. There were a lot of things that were bothering Michael because I felt the tension. It was subliminal, but I could feel it a lot, you know. You can't, I'd say he was a happy-go-lucky person, you know, all through his career.
Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones, one of the most decorated and commercially successful collaborations in pop music history. But their road to riches and superstardom was characterized just as much by tension and power struggles as it was by unprecedented
one of the best tandems
and critical acclaim.
Since, well, I can't say since,
having first worked together on the set of 1978's
Michael and
The Wiz,
Scotty,
the duo would go on
Keenan
to
and
forge
Kel,
Jackson's iconic 1980s sound.
Nobody does it
a
better than
decade
these two.
he would ultimately conquer, with the release of Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad. Yet after 10 years of dominating the global charts, they abruptly stopped working together. In the years that followed, they publicly distanced themselves from one another. So what caused the sudden and seemingly permanent split? Was it rivalry, betrayal, creative sabotage, or all of the above?
Now, I know that Michael tends to like not want to stay in one place for too long. He is constantly trying to change and move forward and stuff like that. That's one of the reasons why, you know, the Victory Tour was so hectic, and Mike announced live on stage that he was essentially quitting on that last show. He doesn't like to be complacent and stay in one place for too long. So it is possible it could just be a case where he just lost interest in like following that exact same sound over and over again. But they'll get into more details.
Here's the detail. Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones first crossed paths in 1978 on the set of the film adaptation of the all-black Broadway production of The Wizard of Oz, The Wiz.
Love The Wiz.
By this point, Quincy was already a legend in both music and film scoring. He had worked with the greats, Louis Armstrong, Ray Charles, Aretha Franklin, Sammy Davis Jr., and Frank Sinatra, to name just a few, and was responsible for the movie's musical direction. Michael,
I didn't notice Quincy Jones was playing that piano
and
until the very
actor,
last time I
playing
watched
the
The Wiz recently.
The two bonded while working on the film's music. First on Ease on Down the Road with co-star Diana Ross, and then on You Can't Win, Michael's only solo performance in the film.
Michael came over to my house. I'd met him when he was 12 at Sammy's house. He was about 12 years old. And I remember at the Academy Awards hearing Michael, when he was little, sing Ben, the love story about the rat. You know,
the love story about the rat.
Michael was 19 when we first worked together. He was co-starring him, and I was a musical director.
Funny.
I was resisting it for the score of the movie version of The Wiz. We worked on The Wiz first.
It was terrific. It's something I always wanted to do. And it was a lot of fun working with all the greats, Sidney Lumet, Quincy Jones.
And then I started to watch him, how intuitive he was. He knew everybody's dialogue. He did makeup for 5 hours, and he knew all of their songs and all of their dance steps. Michael was a very, very special talent.
I believe he said that Michael first approached him because he was
observation, influences,
figure out
dancing,
a quote
singing, everything.
that he was like,
thing, you know.
he had this thing where he put out
so
quotes and he couldn't pronounce Socrates' name.
Hooked on to everything, and he'd watch
And Quincy had corrected him.
Fred Astaire, Sammy Davis.
And that's when Mike mentioned wanting a
Unbeknownst to
producer.
Quincy,
And
Michael
Quincy
would later
said he'll
reflect on
produce
his
next
time
project
filming The
and stuff.
Wiz as an overwhelmingly positive and liberating experience. At just 19 years old, it was the first time he had been allowed to spend extended time away from his family, and crucially, from the ever-critical eye of his father. For the first time, he felt creatively inspired and free to experiment, to express himself openly. Working on the set of a real movie musical, the kind he had been obsessed with as a child, felt like a dream realized. It was a period of his life Michael didn't want to end. And before filming had even wrapped, he approached Quincy with a proposition. Would he produce his first true solo record as an adult artist?
And he said, I'm going to go be on Epic, and I'd like you to help me find a producer. I said, Michael, I don't want to talk about that. You don't even have a song in the picture yet. And I started to see a maturity in him that I respected him a lot in the Motown Records, you know, all of this stuff, ABC, you know, Dance Machine, all the great things they did, you know, great producers. I think I'd like to take a shot at producing a new record because I felt something else in him.
Their bond had deepened during production. The former child star held immense respect for Quincy's vast experience and was in awe of the caliber of careers he had shaped. Michael was preparing to break away from the Jackson sound and reintroduce himself, not as a prodigy, not as a group member, but as a fully formed solo artist, a grown man. He needed the right producer to execute that transformation, someone with sophistication, someone with authority, someone who could position him not as a relic of childhood fame, but as the defining pop star of a new generation. However, when Michael returned to Epic Records with the suggestion that Quincy produce his next album, the label hesitated. Executives reportedly believed Quincy was too rooted in jazz, not contemporary enough to appeal to Michael's core pop and R&B audience. But Michael was determined. He returned to Epic and argued his case, and eventually, the label relented. Once that decision was made, it wasn't simply the start of a new collaboration. It was the beginning of a new Michael Jackson.
We finished the movie. Michael came back all teary-eyed one day and said, the people at Epic don't want to use you. They said, you're too jazzy, you know. I said, Michael, we will be fine, just fine. And he, thank God, he went back and they fought and they said, he's doing it, you know. Everybody that picked, black and white, said, no way, it's not going to work. And I love that. Ooh. All you got to do is get me going, is underestimate me. When I first started working with him, his father and everybody else says, you can't make him any bigger. I said, we'll see. And one thing led to another.
So we'll see.
During the recording of Off the Wall, Quincy and Michael formed a close creative bond. Jones took control of the sessions, using cutting-edge studio
Quincy wearing the
technology
LL Cool
and
J
his
hats.
meticulous production of discipline
say
to build an entirely new sound
LL was wearing the
around
Quincy
Jackson's
Jones hats.
distinctive vocals.
Like
What
the
resulted
Kangles.
was an undeniable new direction for the artist. The record embodied Michael's new superstar persona, filled with optimism and infectious electric energy. Off the Wall produced 4 top 10 hits. Don't Stop Till You Get Enough.
This might be a dumb question, and it's something I always wondered when it came to, when it comes to records and stuff. How exactly did you jump between tracks on a record? Like, was there a specific spot that it told you to like put the needle on to like start a specific song? Or did you just have to like start the record from the beginning and just like wait till it got to the song? I never quite understood that. I'm a little old school. I'm a 90s kid. It's crazy saying that it's old school, but yeah, I'm like 90s kid down to my heart. Like it's like embedded in me. But I was still a little bit after the record thing was big. Like I was into cassettes halfway through my childhood. That's when CDs came out, and then you had the MP3s that came out and started taking over, and then of course you had streaming. So I missed the record wave entirely. So let me know how exactly that worked out.
Rock With You, off the top
Actually, go
10
back a
hits.
bit.
Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, Rock With You, Off the Wall, and She's Out of My Life, and earned Jackson his first solo Grammy Award, winning Best Male R&B Vocal Performance for its lead single.
I felt a lot of things inside that nobody had heard before. Untapped vocal equipment that could take him even much further. You know, one gift that you hope you have is to be able to see something before it happens, you know, and then work backwards in the details and see how to figure out how to get there. You can tell if they got it if you know exactly who they are in the first 20 seconds of their record. Because you have to call up and say, who was that singing? And, you know, you got a rough time. So we hit the first one, and the first album, Michael was on the road most of the time with the brothers, and so he did 2 songs in there, and I got one track I had with the Brothers Johnson on, Get on the Floor. Yes, Michael does not use any profanity, ever. Right, Smelly?
No,
And so when it got good, we said, that's funky. He said, don't say that, it's smelly jelly. And up to that point, Michael's most emotional.
Yeah, that's the story. That's why.
Then you just sing about a love.
That's why Quincy called him Smelly. I know there was like a thing that came out recently. I forgot who it was, but they had said that like Quincy called him Smelly because what was the story? Like because Michael didn't like change clothes often because like his clothes would get stolen all the time or something like that, and that's why he called him Smelly or something. Like no, he called him Smelly because Michael didn't cuss, and in Michael's mind, funky was considered cussing, so he would always say that the album or the song was smelly instead of funky. So that's why Quincy started calling him Smelly.
Love affair with a rap. So I steered him to a lot of songs like Then.
I forgot. I gotta jump back.
Love affair with
I'm getting
rap.
back into
So I steered him to a lot of songs like
the rhythm of
She's Out of My
reacting.
Life, which I was saving for Sinatra. And he cried at the end of it every time, and so I just left it on the
Said he
record.
saved
because it was a very real
She Out of My
emotion,
Life
you know.
for Sinatra.
And the result was Off the
Didn't
Wall,
know that.
an album that featured Rock With You, She's Out of My Life, and Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. And it was the biggest black album in the history at that time. All the guys who would bad mouth me and this and they, it saved their jobs. It really did, you know. So that Scott has a way of evening things out. If you set your vision high enough.
I'm curious. Is that the same shirt that was in Motown 25? Because it kind of looks like it. It kind of looks like the same shirt he wore during Motown 25. Now, maybe if I'm editing this, I'll have a picture of the Motown 25 outfit here, and I'll be able to look at it after the fact. But if not, then, and I forget to put something up, go in the comment section, let me know if this was the shirt that he wore during Motown 25.
It's a way of evening things out. If you set your vision high enough, you know, and you only get 50%, you're doing pretty good. You know, so you keep it real high, like no boundaries at all.
By 1982, the album had sold over 8 million copies, becoming the best-selling album ever released by a black artist at that point. Beyond his early Motown child stardom, Jackson had now proven himself as a vibrant solo artist with his disco-defying breakout. However, despite these achievements, Jackson was surprisingly disappointed by the record's outcome, both critically and commercially. He expressed how upset he was about the perceived underperformance of Off the Wall, feeling it deserved the Grammy Award for Record of the Year. From Michael's standpoint, he and Quincy Jones had produced one hell of an album, and all he received in return was what felt like a token gesture from Grammy voters, who still saw him as that cute little kid with the great moves on The Ed Sullivan Show. Therefore, Michael Jackson approached recording his next LP with fierce competitive determination, motivated by the bitter disappointment he felt in his refusal to be overlooked again. With laser focus, Michael was intent on studying, practicing, and creating something so incredible it would be impossible for anyone to ignore. In general, Michael Jackson was frustrated by albums that had one good song and the rest were like B-sides. The singer said, quote, "Ever since I was a little boy, I would study composition, and it was Tchaikovsky that influenced me the most. If you take an album like Nutcracker Suite, every song is a killer. Every one. So I said to myself, why can't there be a pop album where every song is a killer?" With his next record, Jackson wanted to push his creative capabilities further than ever before. With this in both their minds, during the recording of Thriller in 1982, Quincy and Michael's creative collaboration expanded. Michael grew more confident in his songwriting abilities and began standing his ground on how the record should be produced.
One of the things that Michael really did back in the day that, I don't know if it was pioneering, because I don't know if people are doing it nowadays, but something he did that really helped when it came to finding a bunch of hits to put on one album was, one, he would take his time when it came to making albums. During Michael's adult solo career, he would have maybe like one album come out every 4 or 5 years. So he would have a long time to like really find those gems and like put them on track and put them on the albums. But something else he also did was he would record a bunch of songs and then specifically pick the best ones out of that bunch. Mike was known for recording like 100+ songs during each album recording session, and at the end of it he would pick however many 8, 10, 12 of the best songs that were from that 100. And given how many songs he written, picking the best one is almost guaranteed to grab something that's going to be absolutely astronomical. I'd imagine that Mike, because I mean obviously every song you make isn't going to be like an automatic banger, but given his ability to make hits versus songs that aren't hits, I would imagine Mike is definitely going to give you 1 of 10 when it comes to hits for non-hits. That seems like it's an easy ratio to beat. So like, not only does Mike have albums that are just like a bunch of hits just back to back to back, but there's probably still a lot of unreleased stuff that could still be considered hits. Maybe not as great as some of the stuff that ended up on his retail albums, but definitely stuff that still would be like chart toppers.
In his songwriting abilities and began standing his ground on how the record should be produced. Their creative differences weren't destructive. They were productive. Both strong-willed perfectionists, recording sessions were defined by a constant push and pull. Michael later said he was always pushing for more modern sounds, while Quincy, with his deep musical pedigree, often pulled things back toward tradition. Somewhere within that tension, they met in the middle and created music that remains timeless.
He just has a great quality for excellence, for perfection, and anybody who's worked with him notices this. He'll make you do a thing until it's perfect.
Over and over again?
Yes.
He's difficult to work with?
No, I like to be
Is
grinded
that
a lot.
what's his name? Ed Bradley, I think,
No, he's
from
not
60
difficult at
Minutes.
all. He'll say, it's beautiful. We have a take. Then he'll say, well, can you give us one more?
But their collaboration during this period wasn't always harmonious. While recording Billie Jean, Michael Jackson and his producer Quincy Jones frequently clashed over the track's direction.
Yeah.
Some reports
Quincy
claim
didn't like
Jones
the
initially
intro.
felt the song was too weak to be included on the album, a claim he has since denied.
I also heard he didn't like the intro.
Jones did
He said it
dislike
was
the
too
demo
long.
and took issue with the bass line's now iconic 29-second introduction,
Yeah.
wanting to shorten it significantly. Jackson refused, according to Jones, quote, "The intro to Billie Jean was so long you could shave during it. I said we had to get to the melody sooner, but Michael said that was what made him want to dance. And when Michael Jackson says something makes him want to dance, you don't argue. So he won." Jones was also uncomfortable with the track's title, proposing it be changed to Not My Lover, fearing listeners might associate the song with tennis star Billie Jean King. Once again, Jackson refused to compromise. He also requested co-producing credit, believing the final version closely resembled his original demo, and sought additional royalties. Jones granted him neither, and the disagreement reportedly caused the two to stop speaking for several days. Jones would later claim that Jackson had drawn inspiration for the song's instantly recognizable groove from State of Independence, a Donna Summer track Jones had produced and on which Jackson had sung backing vocals. Songwriter John Anderson recalled, quote, "They took the riff and made it funky for Billie Jean. That's the cross-pollination of music." Meanwhile, Daryl Hall of Hall and
Donna Summer is such a kind of like a deep cut hidden gem artist for me. Like, I always hear her name. I've seen her on several different occasions when it comes to like TV shows and things like that. But I'm very unfamiliar with a lot of her music. But at the same time, when I do become aware of like songs that she sung, I'm like, oh, I think I remember hearing that somewhere. I feel like she's very influential, kind of like Dionne Warwick. Dionne Warwick is also someone that like created a lot of songs that were hits, but in her situation, it was a lot of like people covered her song that, in my opinion, did it a little better. But she was the originators of all those songs.
that's the cross-pollination of music. Meanwhile, Daryl Hall of Hall and Oates said Jackson once told him the groove was influenced by their 1981 hit, "I Can't Go For That, No Can Do," to which Hall responded, quote, "Oh, Michael, what do I care? You did it very differently." Both claims, however, remain unconfirmed.
And this whole fallacy about me not liking Billie Jean is a lie. It is. It's some lie that started somewhere, because anybody could hear that record's a smash. And also, I know where it came from.
He claims Michael Jackson was a thief, claiming he stole songs from all kinds of artists.
He talks about Donna Summer's State of Independence and Billie Jean. The notes don't lie. He was as Machiavellian as they come.
But I think when he's saying stole, he's not saying he actually stole songs from them. He's saying he got a lot of inspiration from it.
Despite the tension, Billie Jean became a global phenomenon, alongside other
No.
hit singles from the album, including
I mean, I wouldn't put it past him meaning like actually stole, because again, towards that later portion of Quincy's life, he was saying some wild stuff. Like, he was saying some really wild stuff. So it's possible he could have actually meant stole.
Billie Jean became a global phenomenon, alongside other hit singles from the album, including Beat It, Wanna Be Startin' Something, Human Nature, PYT, Pretty Young Thing, and the title track, Thriller.
For me, in the Thriller album, my favorite song is honestly Lady in My Life. I saw some video where someone tried to say that was the worst song on the album. They must be smoking Sherm. I don't know what the hell you could possibly say to think that that is the worst song on the album. You've got to be crazy. For me, I would say if I had to pick a worst song on this album, it would probably be Baby Be Mine, in my opinion. I'd say that was probably the worst. Even though saying like worse is kind of, because it's not a bad song. It's just compared to all the other songs on the album, that's the one to me that like I would rank at the bottom.
PYT, Pretty Young Thing, and the title track, Thriller. Their wildest ambitions were realized, and by early 1984, Thriller had become the best-selling album of all time. Almost overnight, Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones transformed from respected industry figures into the most powerful creative partnership in music, their collaborative magic reshaping the landscape of pop forever.
Everybody goes into a studio to make the biggest record in the world.
Sure.
And everybody's always surprised when it isn't the biggest record in the world.
Surprised when it's not.
It's supposed to a lot of hard work.
We spent a lot of time laying down on the ground at midnight.
Yeah, sleeping.
The Bull Constrictor interview.
Oh, it was more than 18.
Quincy's
We were sleeping out on the couch.
Quincy's
Wake up,
expressions when that
next
snake gets
go back
close to him
sleep.
is funny.
They were carrying the second engineers out on stretchers, and the musicians too. They were tired, you know. But we were just all wired up and stoked up and just into it, you know. It's a question of doing something over and
Saying
over
wired
and
up in
over
the 80s
again
meant something
so
different.
You get it right and you figure out what
I don't
it's
think
about.
Mike was into it,
One
but some
thing
of the
that I
musicians
think worked for us is we didn't have
might
time
have
for
been
paralysis from analysis.
delving in that book of
We
sugar.
made Thriller in 8 weeks. And everything was just right. Again, you know, if you just get out of your own way and let that force go to work, that's what happened. What we do is once I get those 9 songs on their feet, in the 9 songs, relatively, what are the 4 weakest? You take those 4 out, which we substituted with a Human Nature, and we added Lady in My Life, wrote PYT, and added Beat It and Human Nature. And that together with Billie Jean, and them starting something in Thriller, it's over, you know, because you got that magic, you know. And then on top of that, MTV and Michael rode each other to glory, because this was the beginning of that. This was when MTV wasn't playing black records. Remember?
Yeah,
and
I do.
Rick James, they were screaming at Motown about Super for Freak and all that. And so we were down.
Yeah, see, now that's something that's kind of a misconception when it comes to the whole MTV not playing black artist things. MTV at the time was playing black artists. There was several like music videos from black artists that played. The problem was they didn't play them during like the prime time hours. Like usually they would reserve the black artists for like in the middle of the night or early in the morning or something like that when most people weren't watching. They kept the prime time artists, the white groups, and they try to make the argument of like, oh well, you know, black artists usually aren't like rock enough. Like they tend to be more R&B or soulful or this, that, and the other. But then at the same time, they would play songs from white artists that weren't rock. So they kind of shot themselves in the foot with that. So I'm actually glad that the Sony president, or was it CBS president, Walter Yetnikoff, made the threat that, you know, like if you don't play Michael Jackson's Billie Jean music video, then I'm going to pull all the artists on my label off your airwaves, and you're not going to have access to any of them, which definitely worked. Also, shout out to David Bowie, who called MTV out at around that same time for not playing black artists, and was really 10 toes down when it came to supporting the cause. Thank you, brother.
Rick James, they were screaming at Motown about Super for Freak and all that. And so we were down in Acapulco with Steve Ross. So what's coming out with Michael next? I said, Billie Jean. I said, it goes on. At first, they didn't know what Thriller was about. The tune, they didn't have a clue. And the song didn't make sense to anybody until the video was made. Because, you know, we got a lot of weird stuff on there. You know, Vincent Price, the king of terror, you know, doing the Edgar Allan Poe type rap in the middle of a pop record like that. And people said, what? 14 minutes.
To be fair, I will say that like a lot of Michael Jackson songs, sometimes the lyrics can be all over the place. Like if you're just going off the lyrics alone, you'll end up all over the place when it comes to like, okay, what does this mean? What does this mean? What is he saying right here? What is he saying right? That's if you can understand what he's saying half the time. There's some songs from Michael Jackson that I listen to, and to this day I have no idea what the hell he's saying. like I just don't. Now that doesn't mean the songs are bad or anything like that. It's just on those songs I tend to have to rock with the rhythm and the sounds more, and you know, if he happens to have a live performance or a music video for it, that makes it even better. But it still doesn't change the fact that I'm mumbling when I'm like singing that song to myself.
Doing the Edgar Allan Poe type rap in the middle of a pop record like that, and people said, what? 14-minute video. And it was received like a feature film almost all around the world.
Michael, I think this is going to be the Citizen Kane of the videos. I really do. It's going to be the most revolutionary thing in the history of the videos, you know.
Well, the videos are getting to be...
I mean, it's a new art form now, but I think this is leading the way. Beat It, and this one is leading the way.
MTV changed the music business, and Michael and MTV would not have been able to do what they did without each other. They rode each other to glory. The video's standard has not changed since then. Britney Spears does the same thing. Madonna does the same thing. The foundation, the template was laid back then. The album, after being out 13 or 14 months, went up to 1.5 million copies a week in sales for 4 months. Which is number one for 37 weeks.
Now, how many record albums did this thing end up selling?
38.
38
million.
38 million.
45 million.
56 million. 110 albums. Million albums.
Yeah, the numbers for Thriller has always been all over the place. Some people report that it sold around 60, 70 million. Some people, like the Michael Jackson estate and everything, will claim that it sold like 110, 120 million. I think the real number is probably closer to around like 70 million. It's still the most highest selling album of all time. And I know there was like news at one point that the Eagles' greatest hits album surpassed it. That was only in the United States. That's not including international sales, because one thing that Michael Jackson really has an edge on when it comes to other big time artists like Elvis and the Eagles is he has a huge international following.
Became the biggest selling album in the history of music, selling anywhere between, we still don't know, 67 to 104 million albums. We still can't find out. This was pre-RIAA.
So when you did the playback for Billie Jean, or for any of the songs on there, was there a moment where you said to yourself, we've done something different, special?
No, but that was the whole plan in the beginning, man. You go through 800 songs to get 9, that's not casual.
But with that level of success came new tensions, ones that extended beyond the studio. During the album's award season, Jackson became increasingly determined to receive full recognition for his achievement. After earning a record-breaking 12 Grammy nominations, he reportedly became fixated on breaking the record for the most awards won in a single night. According to his former spokesman Bob Jones, Jackson allegedly lobbied Grammy officials to ensure any producer award would go directly to him rather than Quincy. Quincy, however, was officially credited as the album's producer, alongside Jackson. Bob Jones later wrote, quote, "The King lobbied hard against Quincy getting that Grammy. He didn't want to share the spotlight at all." A Jackson family source echoed this sentiment, claiming, quote, "Michael did all of the work. It's his music, and everyone knows Michael's sound." But Quincy was a proud and unrelenting figure. He stood his ground and ultimately received the award alongside Jackson. Despite their smiling faces on the night, some believe this moment marked the beginning of a permanent fracture.
That seems like it's more appropriate for both of them to
despite
get up
their
and
shared history,
accept it.
Michael was ultimately looking out for himself. Yet business is business. And with the unstoppable momentum of Thriller, walking away would have been unthinkable.
That's another thing that people tend to like misconceive when it comes to Michael Jackson, like because of how much of a philanthropist he was and like how nice and caring he came off as a person. Michael was a shrewd businessman. Like he was someone that I don't want to say was like a little cutthroat when it came to his business, but he was someone that definitely saw the opportunities when it came to building his brand and establishing himself on the musical scene. He knew how to create opportunities and make the most of them. Something else Michael Jackson used to do back in those days was, and it kind of was a byproduct of him not receiving the proper credit that he felt he deserved for like the Bad album, was he stopped showing up at award shows if they weren't going to offer him something. So it's like, you're not going to take advantage of me and build ratings by trying to advertise that Michael Jackson's going to be there or something like that, unless you got something for me that I can use to help build myself. And so usually when you would see Michael Jackson at award shows after 1988, you would see that he was usually receiving some type of award. A lot of times it would be an award that didn't even exist before, that was like kind of created for him. It also led to the very screwed up situation, in my opinion, when Michael Jackson appeared at the, what was it? It was the event where they gave him an award, like, or they said it was like Artist of the Millennium or something like that. And then turns out they try to say, oh, it was just a birthday celebration. And Michael took it literally and, you know, had an acceptance speech and this, that, and the other. And then they started like clowning him afterwards with like Jack Black and how he, accept this artist of the creation award. And da-da-da. They know damn well that they told Michael and his camp that it was an actual award. If they were just going to pretend and say like, oh no, it was just a birthday celebration and we weren't giving him an actual award. If that's the case, why did Mike show up with an acceptance speech already written out? Like, you don't do that if you're just being told, oh, you're just going to be honored for, you know, your birthday or something. That makes no damn sense.
So instead, they reunited once more for another album.
Anyone who says they figured out how to make records that sell more than 50 million records is lying and smoking Kool-Aid.
Smoking Kool-Aid.
Doesn't work like that. You just find a group of songs to touch you and give you goosebumps. That's why I go by my goosebumps. I don't need survey groups or anything like that. And let the rest take care of itself.
Quincy Jones is a wonderful person. Not only is he an incredible producer, he is a wonderful man. He is such a family person. And I love him, and we have made history together, and I'm thankful.
And it freaked me out because I was worried about Michael, because in June of '84, People magazine did a cover on him with no interview. He didn't do interviews. The next week they did another cover on him with no interviews. And the third week, interviewing the whole issue about him and no interviews. And I think Mike kind of snapped him there a little bit, you know. It can, because if you're not spiritually grounded, you know, strange animal, you got to be ready for success, boy. Because it's, you think you deserve it, all that adulation, all that money, or you think you don't deserve it and you're fooling everybody.
Following Thriller was an impossible task, and its weight was constantly felt during the production of Bad, with Michael Jackson feeling pressured to sustain the pop idol hysteria unleashed by the album and prove its success was no fluke. CBS and the wider industry were watching closely. The pressure of fame and success was immense, both externally and internally. He reportedly wrote a goal on his bathroom mirror: 100 million. He wanted his next album to sell 100 million copies, far outpacing.
Yeah, that's one thing that Mike did that I do believe is something that people should do more, and that's create affirmations, write out what your goals are. And when you write stuff out, it allows you to focus and notice those opportunities and moments when they come more often than if you don't. Also, by writing something out and saying it out loud, it pretty much makes a commitment to yourself that you have to do this thing that you said or this thing that you wrote out. Actually saying that you're going to do it and writing it out is going to allow you to commit to it more than if you just say, well, I need to do this, I should do this, I might do this one day, tomorrow, maybe I'll do it some other time. Like, if you just say like, no, I'm going to do this thing, it creates like a promise that, okay, now I have to get it done because it's out there now.
Pacing what he had achieved with his previous Thriller juggernaut. However, despite Quincy Jones's determined and ambitious nature, even he knew you couldn't produce a record with such a lofty goal in mind and actually expect to achieve it. Music came more organically than that. Quincy's strengths, song selection, sequencing, and cohesion were crucial. But by now, their dynamic was shifting. They were increasingly disjointed, and Michael was increasingly doubting Quincy's direction. In 1987, Quincy arranged for Prince to duet with Michael on the title track, Bad. According to a family source, quote, Michael kinda looked up to Quincy, almost like he looked at Motown founder Berry Gordy. So when Quincy got Prince to agree to the song, Michael felt that it would be good only because that's what Quincy promised. But he didn't know that Quincy had agreed to give Prince top billing on Michael's own song. The duet collapsed. It remains unclear who ultimately canceled it. But when Prince publicly discussed the failed collaboration, Michael reportedly absolutely lost it and blamed.
Yeah, I mean, based on what Prince said in interviews, it sounds like he's the one that killed it, because he talked before about how the opening line of the song is "Your butt is mine," and he's like, "I'm not singing that to you, and you damn sure ain't singing that to me." So already we have a difference of opinion on that. And that's not the first time that Michael and his camp has reached out to Prince to have like a type of collaboration. I believe there was a situation with We Are the World where they tried to get Prince in there. And I think there was another instance after that where Mike tried to have Prince work with him.
The failed collaboration, Michael reportedly absolutely lost it and blamed Quincy for the entire situation. It was clear that Jackson and Jones were having ongoing disagreements about how Michael should proceed musically. As Jackson stated in his autobiography Moonwalk, published in 1988, quote, "We fight. We disagree on some things. If we struggle at all, it's about new stuff, the latest technology. I'll say, Quincy, you know, music changes all the time." Sure, the two had conquered the industry with Off the Wall and Thriller, but during the recording of Bad, Jackson wanted greater creative control and grew increasingly concerned that Jones wasn't in tune with emerging trends in the fast-moving music landscape. Quincy Jones, meanwhile, wanted Michael to incorporate hip-hop into his sound for the Bad record. Quote, "I remember when we were doing Bad, I had Run DMC in the studio because I could see what was coming with hip-hop," he said. And Michael was telling Michael's manager, Frank DeLeo, "I think Quincy's losing it and doesn't understand the market anymore. He doesn't know that rap is dead."
Well, that was a bad step on Mike. Now, don't get me wrong. By 1988, would I have chosen Run DMC? I'm not sure. Maybe. I mean, Run DMC was definitely the biggest rap group in like the early to mid 80s. Were they still as relevant by the late 80s? I'm not sure. Me personally, I would have probably gone more towards like Heavy D and the Boys, probably more towards maybe like an MC Hammer collaboration. Like I think like they were probably like emerging more around that time. Of course, I mean if you really wanted to like future proof that album, you could have went with like NWA or something like that. But I don't think Mike necessarily, his style blends well with them and like gangster rap and stuff like that.
He doesn't understand the market anymore. He doesn't know that rap is dead. This was just before
Should've got Rakim.
NWA, and it takes a nation of millions
And
to
Public
hold
Enemy.
us back, suggesting that Jones, at 54 years old, may have been more aware of where music was heading than Jackson, who was 28 at the time. There was a time when Michael saw Quincy as a pseudo-father figure, someone who could guide and support him in ways his own father never had. But now, having pulled himself away from the constraints of his family dynamics, Jackson was actively rebelling against the lingering authority of figures from his past. Instead, Michael began surrounding himself with a circle of yes men who would validate his boldest decisions and reinforce his growing ambitions.
Yeah, that's something that most famous people who like break into that phenomena, superstar, untouchable status tend to do. Same thing happened with like Michael Jordan and stuff. Like after a while, you start surrounding yourself with yes men and pretty much just getting people around you that say what you want to hear. And that's unfortunate. Usually the person always like ends up losing a lot of like good relationships and good standing around that time because you always need someone that's going to keep you grounded. I wonder if Mike ever reached out to Quincy and spoke on how correct Quincy was when it came to predicting that rap would build up and become like the #1 genre at one point.
Men who would validate his boldest decisions and reinforce his growing ambitions, no matter how out of touch. Quincy Jones, however, was not one of them. He questioned Michael's decision-making during this period, including confronting him about his lightening skin and expressing concern over his increasingly dramatic physical transformation, planting seeds of doubt at a time when Michael was determined to assert complete control over his identity and his future.
Their relationship was very close. I think there was that, father-son thing. I think that was the natural thing to happen.
Boy, the relationship with a producer and an artist is really special. And there's no room for BS at all. It's got to be pure, it's got to be love and respect. Well, you can't be an effective producer unless it's love. You have to love them enough to give them a thorough examination silently.
Was he comfortable in his own skin?
I'm not sure. At times, I didn't think so. Well, I don't think he would have gone through the surgical things he went through. Well, something was wrong because somehow I think with just what was happening to his face, and I used to give him a hard time about the chemical peels and everything else, and he always would tell me things like, I have a blister on my lungs and all those kinds of things, and I swear I've got this disease and so forth. He was getting chemical peels and everything, and I don't know, in a way it was in denial. He wanted to look different.
Now, I do agree. I think that Michael Jackson was rather insecure about the way he looked. Now, he's had times in the media and stuff where he openly says, like, that's not the case, and he just did it as, like, a form of expression, or he did it because there was, I know, like, with the nose one time he said it was because he wanted to, like, hit higher notes with his songs and stuff, which, to me, it doesn't really make any sense, because I feel like after Mike had like several nose surgeries and whatnot, it made his nose sound more like nasally. Like it sounded like he was like, almost like when you hold your nose, you talk like this. It sound like that's kind of how like his voice and singing kind of sounded like, especially like in like the late 90s, early 2000s. Of course, there was he did bleach his skin, but it was as a byproduct of his vitiligo. The cream that he was using to bleach his skin was prescripted. I do think that Michael was insecure about like his looks for a portion of his life.
Filled with anxiety and expectation, what had taken 6 months to produce Thriller ultimately took 2.5 years to produce Bad. The album was incredibly successful and groundbreaking in its own way, but it didn't eclipse the trailblazing success of Thriller and was, by comparison, a commercial and critical disappointment for Jackson. Jones was also unfairly blamed for Bad's inability to surpass Thriller's sales and accolades, particularly after Jackson left the 1988 Grammys empty-handed.
Yeah.
Quote, "He thought I was getting too old for the business because Bad didn't sell 100 million. I said, Michael, you can't get used to 50, 60 million albums. Come on, man. You can't tell me that 30 million is a bomb."
Yeah, I want to say Bad was like the second highest selling album of all time at one point. I could be wrong about that, but I think that might have been the case. So he kind of had like high expectations of himself, a little bit unfair to hold himself to that standard. And it's kind of funny because I think Dangerous went on to sell like 20 million, so it sold actually less than Bad did.
Weren't the two of you kind of disappointed creatively and sales-wise on the Bad LP? Disappointed with 22 million albums? No, not at all. I mean, if you look at it, relationship
Is this Quincy interviewing Quincy?
Thriller, which is 40 million, but that's insanity to think you're going to do that again. 22 million albums is a lot of records. I wasn't disappointed. I've been in the business too long to be disappointed with 22 million.
There's stories about, I mean, you've talked about it before, that it wasn't easy, your relationship together working on these records. It was challenging at times. Was that a hindrance, or did that actually help create what you...
Listen, what am I going to learn from Michael, man? I don't want to be a singer and a dancer, but everything else he doesn't have, we had, you know? So I didn't ask him about anything. We told him what songs he was going to sing. The producer has to do that, you know? You don't ask him what songs we're going to sing.
After Bad peaked, David Geffen began advising Jackson in preparation for upcoming contract negotiations with Sony. Geffen reportedly engineered the departure of Jackson's attorney, John Branca,
David Geffen,
his manager, Frank DeLeo, and ultimately
heard some things.
Jones himself.
Don't know if it's true or not.
According to Jones,
quote, my opinion to myself.
Key members of Michael's entourage, including his attorney, were whispering in his
Could
ear
be very wrong. It's
that
just
I'd be
rumors.
getting too much credit. While Quincy's production had yielded enormous success across 3 albums, it is difficult to argue that Bad was more musically groundbreaking than releases produced by Jam and Lewis, L.A. Reid and Babyface, or Teddy Riley. Jackson knew a change was imminent, and
Teddy
at the
Riley
dawn
over there
of
looking
the
like MC
1990s,
Gusto.
He moved in a different direction, one without Quincy Jones. After spending the 1980s towering over any preconceived notion
not MC
of a
Gusto, just
crossover
Gusto,
star,
the Charlie
Jackson
Murphy
was
character.
seeking to get back to the cutting edge. He needed another reinvention, and he wasn't going to find it with his longtime producer. In any case, Jones himself had no desire to spend another 3 years working on a single album. Quote, "I ain't gonna sit around in the studio 3 years to make an album with Michael," he told the Chicago Tribune in 1995. Quote, "Too long, too long. Bad was too long for me."
Well, I think at one point he probably felt that I wasn't in touch with the market anymore, because I remember when we were doing Bad, I had DMC in the studio because could see what was coming with hip hop. He was telling Frank DeLeo that I think Quincy's losing it, you know, and doesn't understand the market anymore. He doesn't know rap is dead. This was 1987. Rap hadn't even started. And by the time we did Back on the Block, you know, 1992, it was all rap. And at that time, Michael was playing, was going after all of the big rappers, whether it was Teddy Riley, whatever, all the rap producers to spend 5 times what they were paying me, you know, to produce his records and so forth.
I'm kind of curious, why didn't Michael Jackson sing on the album? He said the president of his company didn't want him to sing on my record.
None of Jackson's post-Jones albums would exceed the success the two created together.
I would have loved to have heard
While much
Michael
of this can be
doing a
attributed to the
collaboration with,
controversies
like, damn it, what's his name? I would have loved to have seen Michael Jackson doing a collaboration with Tevin Campbell. That's who it is. Because he was doing a lot of albums with Quincy at that time, and Quincy, you know, had like a bunch of songs that he had written that were like collaborations with other artists, like Secret Garden and stuff like that. I love those songs. To me, those are like some of my favorite songs of all time. And like hear Michael Jackson take part in that and like joining with other artists would have been pretty damn cool.
That enveloped Michael Jackson up until his death in 2009. Those later albums arguably lack the discipline and cohesion of Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad. Jones downplayed his integral role in those records, saying, quote, "That's nothing to do with any one person. That's the combination of the two of us." However, Dangerous History, Blood on the Dance Floor, and Invincible featured multiple producers, which may have contributed to their less unified sound. After Michael Jackson's death in 2009, and in the years since, Quincy Jones has battled Sony Music over royalties he believes he's still owed for the work he and Michael produced, and from which Sony has profited handsomely.
Where was the last time you saw
surprised.
Michael? In London. He was trying to get us back to do another album, and he wanted to bring the kids over, you know. Something else was going on, and he said, let's do it in L.A. And I was coming back from China. I got in Luxembourg, and the Duke and Duchess had a band there, and welcomed us and everything else. And in the car on the way home, they said, by the way, Farrah Fawcett and Michael Jackson just died. I mean, I freaked out. I couldn't believe it, you know.
Now that there are several days have passed by, have you had a chance to really process this?
Absolutely not. It's almost surrealistic, and I have no way of processing it. In my wildest dreams or nightmares, I never thought that he'd leave before me. It's very hard to accept. I know I'm in a big state of denial here because I can't believe it, you know. That I'm 76 years old and he's 50, and he's not with me anymore. And because our souls had to be connected to do what we did in the 80s, you know. It had to be. There was a divinity involved there. I miss my little brother, really do. And I just still cannot process the fact that he's no longer with us. I love him.
There's all this stuff after Bad. What do you think of? What do you think of that?
Huh?
What do you think of the Michael stuff after you?
They're trying to make money, you know, and I understand it. Everybody's after money. The estate, the lawyers, you know, about money.
Do you like it? Does it bother you they're still putting out music?
Yeah. Yeah, but it's not my business anymore.
Quincy Jones is taking Sony Music and the estate of Michael Jackson.
Yeah, when it comes to Mike's posthumous stuff, honestly, most of it I'm not a fan of. When it comes to like the stuff that they like remixed and rearranged and released, for me, the only songs that I really like on those newer albums that came out after he died are the ones that were done by him. Like, for example, on the Escape album, there's several songs that are put on the album that were left the exact way Michael had last left them. And then in other parts of that album, they have those same songs, but they're like rearranged and finished with the producers and people that were putting the album together, and like they put their finishing touches on it to make the song complete. For me, those complete versions are complete garbage. The only original songs, the only song that I like that like they put on like the album is like just a full-on non-remixed album or whatever is I Love Behind the Mask on his Michael album. That one was pretty good. I'm trying to think, is that it? I think that might be it.
Not my business anymore.
Quincy Jones is taking Sony Music and the estate of Michael Jackson to court. The music producer says he is owed millions in royalties generated from some of the King of Pop's biggest hits.
Not surprised
after his
again.
death.
I've heard
Quincy Jones has been
the
awarded
Jackson
$9.4 million in the
getting
Michael
very stingy
Jackson
when it
royalty
comes
trial.
to
Now, Michael
the
Jackson's
royalties.
estate is saying that judgment is too much and it's unfair to Michael Jackson's heirs. So they are trying to say that is not proper, not correct.
You wouldn't have all of that if it wasn't for Quincy Jones. Quincy Jones laid that foundation with Off the
Like
Wall
Quincy
and Thriller.
was fighting for
Following the court's
royalties.
decision, Jones said in an official
John Landis
statement,
were fighting
this
for
lawsuit was
royalties.
never about Michael. It was about protecting the integrity of the work we all did in the recording studio and the legacy of what we created.
The legendary producer has also become more candid when speaking about Jackson. In a 2018 interview with Vulture, Jones claimed the King of Pop stole a lot of stuff. Jones also said that Jackson was greedy and should have given partial writing credit to keyboardist Greg Gaines for Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. Quote, Michael should have given him 10% of the song. Wouldn't do it. In the same Vulture interview, Quincy was equally revealing about Jackson's personal struggles, saying he had raised concerns about his plastic surgery. Quote, I used to kill him about the plastic surgery, man. He'd always justify it and say it was because of some disease he had. Bull. According to the music...
Yeah, again, that's when Quincy was like going off on Mike for some reason. I'm not sure exactly why, but they just confirmed that Michael Jackson had vitiligo, so his skin getting lighter is justified. He had lupus. Now, I don't know how much of an impact that had on, you know, like his nose surgeries and whatnot. But I do think that it probably played a part in like why his nose tend to like look not as well done as it did earlier in his career, like with Thriller and Bad. He had like a very, very somewhat unnaturally small nose, but at least it still had like a little bit of smoothness to it. Like it meshed a lot better with his overall like look. But and once you start getting to like the history era and after, there was a lot of things going on with his nose that kind of looked a bit unnatural. Now, it could have just been aging. Something I always say to people when it comes to like plastic surgery and stuff is like, when you get plastic surgery done, it looks natural at the time that you get it. But as you age, the portions of your face that you've cut out or changed, it continues to grow and stuff. And if you move certain things, if you remove certain things, some things are going to grow in directions that it wasn't supposed to originally grow in, or your face is going to change, but because you remove certain things, that change isn't going to look as natural because what was originally there isn't now. So now something is missing or something just doesn't quite look right or natural because you have this portion of your face that is gone now. So like you have to kind of like future proof it. And that's something that I think was the reason why, like, as Michael got older, you know, the changes weren't adapting to his more older look.
Disease he had. Bull.
But he did have the diseases, though. Those were
According to the music producer, Jackson had a problem with his looks. Quote, because his father told him he was ugly and abused him.
They had
That's
these
partially true,
amazing
too.
collaborations on these 3 albums, these kind of culture-changing albums, and then to subsequently see what happened to Michael. Did that break your heart?
Well, yes, it does. But you know, I've been in this business 60 years, and success is an amazing animal. It's a very complex animal, and nobody can. I'm not a psychiatrist or shrink. I'm not going to try to get philosophical about it. It's a lot to eat. There were a lot of things that were bothering Michael because I felt the tension. It was subliminal, but I could feel it a lot, you know. You can't, I'd say he was a happy-go-lucky person, you know, all through his career.
When it comes to the allegations that have been made against Michael over the years, Quincy Jones has not only refused to publicly discuss or defend Jackson against them, but has also made attempts to distance himself from the artist during those periods.
Yeah, first of all, don't even get me started on the accusations. I have a video up already. I believe it's called Discussing Michael Jackson. I'll try to have it linked up somewhere around here. That'll pop up. You can click on it and check it out, where I go into detail about like the allegations, and I have some source material and stuff in the comment section that's pinned, so you can check that out and see for yourself about like the evidence and whatnot. But I think that complete garbage. And before I even like have to say this or go into the comment section and let people know, there will be no Quincy Jones slander in the comment sections. You can talk about like his opinions on like Michael Jackson's motivations for surgeries or whatever else, some of the more wild things he was saying at the end of his life. Sure, you can talk about that stuff. But any of this nonsense about like him being the leader of the Illuminati and him having all these like scandalous things that he did and like whatnot, like miss me with the bullshit. Just get out of here with the garbage, conspiracy theories and stuff, and the like people try to put him on like the same level as like Epstein and stuff when it comes to like some of the things they accuse him of, even though they have like zero evidence or zero type of sources when it comes to that stuff. It's just like sensationalism for the sake of sensationalism. Like, miss me with the bullshit.
In 2019, during the immediate aftermath of Dan Reed's Leaving Neverland documentary, all mentions of Michael Jackson were removed from marketing material associated with Quincy Jones's show at London's Royal Albert Hall. The concert was originally announced as a night celebrating 3 of Michael Jackson's most iconic albums, with promotional material stating that Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad would be performed with a live symphony orchestra. However, the event was later renamed Quincy Jones Presents Soundtrack of the 80s, Defining Albums and Iconic Songs. Michael Jackson's music was still performed on the night, but the revised marketing focused on the songs themselves, rather than Quincy Jones's enduring association with the pop icon.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I understand why you would do something like that. I mean, at the end of the day, it's still a business. If there's a controversy going on, regardless of whether or not you believe it or don't believe it, it's going to hurt sales, and it's going to cause you to lose advertisers and whatnot if you decide to show your support one way or the other behind someone that's going through something controversial. But at the same time, it's still kind of hurtful to like see someone that was so prominent in another artist's life and then make such great music together and then like distance themselves. Anyway, let's go ahead and finish this video out, and I'll give my closing statements.
In the end, what Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones created together was greater than either of them alone. 3 albums, 10 years, and a sound that didn't just define a decade, it defined modern pop music itself. Michael spent the rest of his life chasing reinvention. Quincy spent the rest of his life defending the legacy they built together. But neither could ever escape it. When Quincy Jones died in 2024, he left behind one of the most influential musical legacies in history. Yet among all the artists he worked with, it was his work with Michael Jackson that reshaped the cultural landscape forever. Together, they didn't just make hits, they made history, and even in silence, their work still speaks.
Very, very true. Very, very true. They made history. That's a great way to put it. Again, like I said, one of the greatest tendons when it comes to music, and well, actually when it comes to anything. Like, I can't think of any 2 people that accomplished more than those 2. Yeah, like I have a lot of appreciation for Quincy Jones when it comes to his musical touches and the different artists and acts that he was able to put together and promote. And To me, he's easily the greatest producer of all time. I have a very hard time thinking of anyone else that I'll put above him. But with that being said, let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Like, what's your opinion on Quincy Jones when it comes to whether it's his relationship with Michael Jackson or whether it's music that was released outside of his partnership with Michael. Let me know what you think of him as a producer and where would you rank him. Let me know what you think of Michael Jackson when it comes to his music before and after Quincy and the stuff that he did with Quincy, and how would you say his sound and his impact changed with and without Quincy and whatnot. So be sure to let me know what you guys think. With that being said, I'm Devon DaVinci. I'm going to give you the deuces. Hopefully my Michael review will be out by now. I'm going to try to put a little more editing into it to give it more like context and make it a little more entertaining when it comes to just like me giving my opinion on the movie itself. But until then, I'm giving you the deuces and I'm signing out. Peace.